doesn't mean comfort. There is a difference.
Thank you.
Freedom doesn't mean comfort, but I also think that freedom doesn't mean fear.
We got to address the suburban women problem because it's real.
Welcome to the Suburban Women Problem, a podcast from Red, Wine, and Blue.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rachel Vindman.
I'm Amanda Weinstein.
I'm Jasmine Clark.
And this is a special 4th of July bonus episode of the Suburban Women Problem. Last year, we did a special episode for Independence Day where we talked about what patriotism means to us. It was one of my favorite episodes, actually. I loved it. So this year, we thought we'd do something similar, but instead talk about freedom. Amanda, would you like to start us off? What does freedom mean to you?
Oh, man. So this is a fun one. So when I think about freedom, I think about all the patriotic stuff, but I especially think about a lot of the stuff that was that I learned more about, I will say, when I was in the military. So when serving in the military, you learn a lot about service and a lot about the Constitution. You raise your right hand and you swear to defend that Constitution. So you probably should know a lot about what you're swearing to defend. And a lot of what you're swearing to defend is about freedom. And so one thing that I really learned, and we also had to memorize a lot of quotes and things. And one of the quotes, I won't read it all because it actually is long, but I'll just read the end. It says, it is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. And that quote really stuck with me because what freedom means is I was willing to fight with my life for someone else's freedom, even the freedom to do something that I didn't like or I didn't agree with. I personally don't like burning flags, but I will fight to the death for your right to do it. And that was something that really, really stuck with me. And I think about it in a lot of different contexts. So I think about it even with the Roe decision, that even if I wouldn't do the same thing you're doing or making the same decision, I will fight for your right to do that thing, because that is a freedom that you should have. And I think that kind of freedom is something that we all need to fight for, and that we need to fight for the freedom to do the things that we want to do, as long as we're not hurting, people around us, to say and do. It doesn't mean there aren't consequences. There are still consequences, and that is something that comes with it. But the freedom to do it means it's legal and they won't put you in jail for doing it, whether that's burning the flag or whether that is if you need an abortion. That those things are freedoms that we all should have. And it is very important to me. And it has always been, I think it's important to me, but especially the military, that those freedoms are important to us. And we need to fight for it. And we need to fight for it every day to keep it. It wasn't just that they drafted a constitution, a couple hundred years ago and they're done. Work is done. We're clearly still fighting for those freedoms today. And that is something that I still take with me, that we need to fight for those freedoms.
That's the beautiful thing I think about the United States is there's so much diversity, and there's not just diversity the way we look, where we come from, what our backgrounds are, but also in how we view things, how we choose to express our freedom. But the thing is that we think that everyone should be able to have those rights. And let me just say, I know this holiday isn't about that, but thank you very much for your service and for sharing what you learned from your service.
Well, so I think of also with 4th of July and the freedom is like, you think about the flag, but it's what the flag stands for, right? It's not the cloth. It's not the stars. It's not the stripes. It's what it stands for.
Sure.
And to me, that's really what, this holiday is all about. All right, Jasmine, I think you're up next. What does freedom mean to you?
So this is always an interesting question for me, especially in the context of the 4th of July. And the reason why is while we were fighting for our freedom from the British Empire or whatever, my ancestors were not free on 4th of July. The ones that were here, many of them were enslaved. And so I think when I think of the 4th of July, I think of the journey of the soul of America. And I really think about how imperfect our country is and how we have to work constantly towards a more perfect union. And then it makes me kind of sad that some of the freedoms that we were starting to see are starting to be stripped away. And I know that might seem hyperbolic, that might seem like it's a bit of an exaggeration, but the truth is, when I was deciding whether or not to have children, I had choices that now my own child in this current political climate does not have. When I think about the fact that we are taking away the ability for teachers to even talk about diversity, to talk about race in a way that is just historically accurate. That to me is not freedom. And that is taking freedom away. And let's be clear, we have never really truly taught history as honestly as we could have. But now it's like we're getting more dishonest instead of more honest. I think we were headed toward more honesty. And then that's when people got a little afraid, and certain people decided we need to take that away too. When we talk about parenting, I mean, parenting is hard enough when you're just trying to do it as the parent. Everyone knows how annoying it is when you're just trying your best and someone gives you some unsolicited advice about how you need to be a better parent by doing this or that. And people on the internet are great for that. That's what I feel like Moms for Liberty does. They do not stand for liberty. They are anti-freedom because they are against the freedom to just be able to parent, to choose the books that your child has access to choose to say, I want my child to have an accurate accounting of history. The truth is, if they were really for liberty, then they would be for, I should have the option to opt out, not that I should have the option to take it away from everyone. If you want to parent your child in a way where you would like them to be ignorant of the facts that have happened throughout our nation's history, honestly, that's your right as a parent. I don't agree with that. And as Amanda said, I'm not going to agree with everything. But what I don't think is freedom is when one individual or a small group of individuals gets to take something from everyone else because they don't like it. And so on this 4th of July, I lament that we are losing freedoms, but I am also hopeful because I'm watching and I'm listening and I see our younger generation and even us and people like us, people in red, wine, and blue and beyond that are fighting to get those freedoms back. So this 4th of July, I'm thinking about where we've gone and where we're headed and hoping that we can get back toward a pathway to more freedoms in our country.
Oh, I love that. That's so important because when you think about freedom also means having the choice, right? So when you talk about when you take away a choice of a book for a kid to read or a lot of things that Moms for Liberty advocates for, you're taking away choices. And you only really have freedom when you have choices at your disposal, which we aren't giving people and doing the opposite, telling people that somehow this is making them more free. You have more liberty by not having the choice of which book your kid can read when it's so obviously not true.
Yeah. I mean, I think freedom is about choice. It is you're free to choose. If there's no choice, then there's really no freedom.
No.
Well, Rachel, what about you?
Well, I also have a quote, one of my favorite quotes from Nelson Mandela, which is really personal to me, just kind of where I am right now. It's very relevant. This quote is really relevant to me in this season of my life as I kind of work through a lot of things that I believe for a long time or believe without really thinking about them and thinking about why I might have been taught those things at a young age. And that is, for to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. And that is something that I really want to focus my efforts on. Am I not just living my free life? Because I feel like after a time when it was hard for our family and we've come out of that, but it's not just that I can say that's behind me and that's okay. And now my life is good and I've broken free. I've broken free from Alex being in the army. I've broken free from so many things, from living in the DC area, all that stuff. But that's not enough because I also have to focus my energy, I think, on making sure that others have the freedom for all the things that you discussed, Jasmine. I mean, that my child has freedoms, that she grows up and she has the same rights that I did, which is not the case right now. So that's why I'm, like all of us, going to continue to fight for that and to get that back. But I've also lived in countries, in Russia in particular, where I had friends who were not willing to discuss different things. And it's not like I discussed a lot of heavy things with my Russian friends, but there were things that if it even got a little bit close to something political, they would just stop the conversation and they would not have those conversations. And I saw the fear on their faces, the fear that they knew that people, could be listening. Actually, in the kindergarten where I worked, there were listening devices. I know for a fact that the management listened to us and they would try to mention these conversations that people had with some of the teachers, especially the Russian teachers. So it's something that happens from the government, and that's where they learned it. And then it was picked up by regular civilian society to use against the workers. So that kind of fear, when that is between you and your ability to provide for your family, is really real.
Yeah.
So freedom means that everyone has freedom. And that's why I do the things I do. It's to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to live their life of freedom, both here in the United States. I hope that we can get our acts together, guys, and that if we can get back to gain some ground, that we can return to being that. Maybe I don't agree a lot with Ronald Reagan these days, but I do think that the United States is the shining city on a hill. I think it can be that. But we need to do a little bit of housekeeping and some work at home to get our house in order. And once again, we have been that. And anyone who's traveled outside the United States, okay, maybe with the exception of Western Europe, because they kind of have their stuff together a little bit more than us.
Fair.
But if you've talked to people from other countries, they want to come here. For all our imperfections, we have so much opportunity that just does not exist in any other country in the world. The opportunity to come as a humble immigrant, like my father-in-law, with, I don't know, $630 and 3 suitcases or 4 or whatever, and come and live the American dream. That exists here. Anyone can accomplish it, but we have to make it available for everyone. And right now, that's just not the case. So we have to do that. And I think once we kind of capture that back, and I do think we will, as Alyssa Slatkin said, we're going through a rough patch. And that's okay, but we're going to get over it. We're 5-6 years in, and we'll be okay in this lost decade. But those of us who are fighting have to keep fighting. And the 4th of July is one of my very, very favorite holidays because of its symbols to me, just so much hope and possibility. And that's what the United States was. But as Jasmine mentioned, it wasn't that way for everyone. And that's something we have to be mindful of. We can't just gloss over. It's not pleasant to talk about. It's not pleasant to think about. Okay.
And that's
lots of
okay.
things aren't. Yeah.
The goal, freedom doesn't mean comfort. There is a difference.
Thank you.
Freedom doesn't mean comfort, but I also think that freedom doesn't mean fear. And Rachel, you really brought that home. A lot of the things that we're seeing happening in our country are based on fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on a fear of a certain group of people, or fear of losing one's status in society, or fear of losing one's, their guns or whatever, all of these different things. It's based on this fear, but that's not freedom. If I am so afraid to teach history because I don't want to lose my job, that's not freedom. If I am so afraid to go to my doctor and say, I do think that I would like to make this choice or another choice, that's not freedom. And so, I understand that fear is a part of life, but I think that true freedom doesn't involve ruling by fear.
That's a good point. I think there's a lot of fear of what people will do or say, or how our kids will grow up, or how our kids will grow up to vote, and how our kids will think. And you really see that control that a lot of people want to control our kids, control us, control our bodies. You see that control where I think, especially as a mom, like I want my kids to feel free to be whoever they want to be when they grow up. And I want that freedom for my kids.
Right.
I want the freedom for every kid. So Rachel, I loved how you said, talking about the freedom for other people. My kids, at least as far as I know right now, are not trans, but I want that freedom for other people's kids, that if they need healthcare for their trans child, I want them to have that choice. I want them to have that freedom, and I will fight and speak out so that they can have that freedom, even though that's not something that, at least as far as I know, is one of my concerns right now. But that freedom should be every parent's freedom and every kid's freedom to let them be the person that they want to be, not, the control we see from the other side.
Literally the freedom to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That should be like bare minimum in the United States.
Low bar. Let's get over that, people.
Going into the 4th of July, I think that is probably, let's start there.
Yes.
Let's start with the freedom to exist
and say about it. We should be able to say gay and say trans.
Yeah.
Those should be things we could say.
Exactly.
Well, maybe like free yourself to not have to worry about everyone's choices falling on your shoulders.
Oh, that's a
girlfriend.
Oh my
good
gosh.
point.
And if you need things to do, reach out. I've got some things for you.
It's like when my daughter says she's bored and I'm like, oh, really? Let me tell you all the things that we can clean today.
Yeah, like there's so much more. It can be so healing. Give yourself that freedom too. You're not going to be able to control them forever. So the sooner you learn that, I'm talking to myself here, people. I know I have friends that are probably listening like, oh, really, Rachel? Yes. But the truth is, like, we can't do it. We want to, and that's okay. I mean, it's probably not, but I mean, if you feel that, you're not the only person that feels that way, but just think about, like, they're going to make decisions and we're just equipping them with what they need to make the best decisions because we're giving them love. We're showing them empathy. We're giving them all these tools. Then we have to trust them.
Exactly.
And that's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. A lot of people don't trust others to have freedom.
That's true. It's a
because
lot of trust.
they're afraid of what they're going to choose when they have freedom. It's like me when I wrap my daughter at camp every day. Make sure you're eating fruits. Make sure you're eating some vegetables. See, I mean, you guys, this is a problem I have. I admit it. But we have to know that when someone has freedom, we have to trust that they would make this is the right decision for them. And that might be the decision that you want to make. And that's okay. But as long as it's not harming others, and we're definitely getting into that territory a lot of the times these days. And I think that that's what we really need to look at when we're examining these aspects of freedom and what we want. And you see the stark reality against that. So it's a good thing to think about on this Independence Day. And I hope that everyone has a lovely holiday celebrating however you do. Again, it's one of my very favorite holidays. So have a safe and happy 4th of July. We will see you again next week on another episode of the Suburban Women Problem.
The Suburban Women Problem was created by Red, Wine, and Blue. Our producer and editor is Amy Thorstensen, and our project manager is Lindsay Quist. Videos by Abigail Martin and Ashley Hufford. For more information about upcoming events and trainings, or to learn more about Red, Wine, and Blue, follow us on social media or at www.redwine.blue.